Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 587. 587. Wednesday, October 24th, 2018. Well, you know what happens on Wednesday? I take out the trash and I have chicken. I think I'm going to go for the bourbon chicken tonight with fried rice. Alrighty, let's get into the news. Well, last night, of course, if you saw my video yesterday, I think I commented on the incredible rally out there in Texas with Trump going out to Texas to campaign for Ted Cruz and other Texas Republicans. Incredible crowd. Close to 100,000 in the arena, more people outside. Incredible numbers of people. Fantastic rallies. And, you know, I don't know where he gets the energy. I mean, because he was doing like a media thing at the White House at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Then he's got meetings all day. He's doing all this. And then he goes out to Texas that evening, flies out there, and he gives, this is like over an hour long rally. It's like an hour and a half rally. Longer than that, I think. And then he gets back to Washington. You know, it's got to be late when he gets back, and he's up early in the morning, and he's working on other things. I mean, does this guy ever sleep? He's like 70 years old. Where does he get the energy? And they're saying that in the last week before the election, week after next, he's going to be doing 3 rallies a day. He is absolutely almost, it defies almost like the human energy level at that age. I mean, I'm not nowhere near 70, and I don't have that kind of energy. He's absolutely an extraordinary president, an extraordinary specimen, physical specimen, to have that kind of energy. And, of course, they love him in Texas, and just an incredible rally, a lot of the things he says. I mean, and it's just, what's so great about Trump is he just says that, he just tells the truth. He says what's on his mind. There's no spin. He don't have any people around him saying, well, you know, here's the script, read the script, don't say this, don't talk about this, if you talk about this, say it this way, don't do this, don't. He doesn't have any of that going on, man. He just lets it rip. He just lets it rip and lets the chips fall where they may. And it's an extraordinary time. I wish my father were alive to see this. He would be just absolutely ecstatic. He would love Trump. He would love Trump. And he's not here to witness it, but man, oh man, he would absolutely just love Trump. Now, at the same time that Trump was drawing this massive crowd, Obama was actually giving a speech where he was in a little pavilion where they had to actually close off one section of it because he couldn't fill it. A small little room, and in like a 45-minute speech, he dropped his name, I, about, I think it was 92 times. He tried to take credit for the economy. He's like, well, let's remember who started this economy. It was me. It's my economy. Trump's getting credit, trying to take credit for my economy, my jobs, blah, 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 blah. The guy's nuts. And, you know, of course we all know that he studied NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which is a way of using speech patterns and certain ways of speaking to almost like hypnotize people. So he had his NLP going, classic Obama. I mean, this guy's such a liar. He referred to Trump again as a tin-pot dictator. I mean, he's despicable. Absolutely despicable. Lock his ass up. Man, when we get to the bottom of Spygate, we're going to find that the top two of the top tier people in that entire operation were the rotten Reverend Clinton and Barack Hussein Obama. I want both their asses locked up. Both of them. Both of them. I have no problem. Generally, you don't, do that to a former president. You give him a pardon or whatever. I hope to God Trump doesn't pardon Barack Hussein Obama. I hope he doesn't. I hope when we get to that point and Obama's on his hands and knees begging for a pardon, I'd say, hell no, Hussein, your ass is going to Sing Sing or Alcatraz. Or better yet, let's bring back the Ship of Fools and put them all on there. Put the entire Democratic Party on the Ship of Fools. He's absolutely despicable. the worst president, certainly of my lifetime. Um, he's just a horrible person, man. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, Obama is really, really a nasty son of a bitch, and I really want him. I really want him in cuffs. I really do. Typically, I'd say, yeah, you don't throw a president in jail like that. You pardon him, but not in his case, because we know what he did. He knows what he did. It's going to be exposed what he did. And this arrogant son of a bitch just continues to go out there and think that he can use propaganda, and that's going to somehow carry the day. But I'm telling you, at the end of the day, he is going to be exposed for being totally in the know and a major player in the Spygate fiasco. And I hope to God that he is charged, convicted, and sentenced to prison. Trump should not pardon Barack Hussein Obama. Throw his butt in jail. You know, we already, people are talking about this midterms in 2018 being historic. Well, it already has become historic. And what I mean by that is that we're already seeing numbers that are absolutely unprecedented in a midterm election. And we're getting now the numbers because early voting has started in many states. And we can see the numbers of people who are going to vote, who have voted in the early voting. And the percentages are just absolutely unbelievable. It is literally 3 to 4 times the number of registered voters we have ever seen in a midterm election. The numbers look almost like very, very close to a regular 4-year presidential election. Typically, a midterm election, you get, a quarter to maybe a third of the turnout that you get in a presidential year. But we are seeing numbers very close to 2016. Very close. We're seeing numbers that are 3, at least double, in many cases 3, sometimes 4 times the number of people participating in early voting than we've ever seen before in a midterm. Tells us it's going to be a huge turnout for voting. This midterm is going to have a turnout number that's going to look a lot like a presidential election year. And you can look at that as being good or bad, but we know the turnout on both sides is very high. So what that tells you is both sides are fired up. Now, who they're voting for, we don't know. But we do know which party and to what percentage they are voting, who are showing up to vote early. So let's go down just a list of some of these states that have early voting, and let's take a look at the percentages, Republican versus Democrat, of people who are participating in the early voting. So let's start with Arizona. In Arizona, we have an early voting. 44% of Republicans of early voting was Republicans. 33% of early voters in Arizona were Democrat. 44 to 33 Republicans, up by 11 as far as the percentage of people early voting. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that these are Republican votes or Democrat votes, but we can assume if they're Republicans, they're probably voting Republican. If they're Democrats, they're probably voting Democrat. But you certainly will have cases where maybe Republicans are voting Democrat or Democrat voting Republican. This can certainly happen. Certainly in some states, the way that the rules are, you can do that. So this doesn't necessarily tell you it's pretty close. I mean, you can be pretty sure probably 90% of the time people vote for the party. But we don't know that exactly. But this just tells us what percentage of the people who took part in early voting were either Republican or Democrat. And in Arizona, the percentage of people who took part in early voting were 44% Republican, 33% Democrat. That's 11 points in the positive column for Republicans in Arizona. In Florida, we have 44% in early voting Republican, 38% Democrat. That is +6 for Republicans in early voting in Florida. We have Georgia, 52% early voters were Republican to 43% Democrat. That is +9 for Republicans. In Indiana, 51% early voting Republicans, 39% Democrats. That's Republicans +11. In Montana, 46% early voters Republican to 29% Democrat. That is a Republican plus 17 in Montana. In Montana, 46-29, that's 46% of Republicans voting early, 29 Democrat. That is a huge swing. In Nevada, in Nevada we have the Democrats actually with 45% early voting to Republican 38. That is a Democrat 7-point advantage. Then we get to Tennessee, 63-30. 63% Republican early voters to 30% Democrat early voters. That's plus 33. Something tells me Tennessee is going to be a blowout for the Republicans. That governor candidate is a disaster, and I think a lot of people are getting out just to stop her by any means necessary, meaning any legal means necessary via voting. Texas, 53% of early voters Republican to 43% Democrat. That's plus 10. And let's keep in mind, we know from historical data that Republicans vote heavier than Democrats on election day. So this tells us a lot. It tells us, number one, that we are in an historic election year. We're going to see the highest number of voters coming out to vote in the midterms than we've seen in probably, I don't know if it's in history, but certainly a long, long time. And we are seeing that Republicans in all the states we just mentioned, with the exception of Nevada, have anywhere from a 6 to a 33-point advantage in early voters being Republican. We can also see, and we know, that the Republicans typically vote heavier on election day than Democrats. So this tells us a lot. It tells us that everybody is fired up on both sides. Now when you're talking about, see, it gets complicated in House races and things like that, because states have all different rules. Like in Ohio, if you're registered as a Republican, you have to vote on a Republican ticket. If you're, I can't really go vote for a Democrat, right? So in a primary. Now in a general election you can in Ohio, but that's Ohio. Indiana has a different rule. Kentucky has a different rule. So Pennsylvania has a different rule. Michigan has a different rule. So all the states around us all have different rules on exactly how that works, and that's why it makes it so hard for people to break down exactly what's going to happen in the House. It's much easier in the Senate. It's much more difficult in the House because you have 435 individual races. And so many things come into play in congressional races because these are local individuals, people who generally live in a community or certainly should live in a community. They're very well known by people in the community. They're generally the same people that run over and over again. They ran as city council, and they ran for the state Senate or state house, then they run for the federal house. So these are people that most congressional districts, that the voters in those districts know very, very well. And so you don't have a lot of big surprises here. You don't have people coming out of left field too much. But what is, again, historic about this particular midterm? Obviously, the Trump factor. When you throw Trump into the equation, you can throw out everything else you've ever known about elections. All we know from the 2016 election that everything that you used in the past, that the experts used to predict elections or conducting polls and all these things, you can throw all that out the window. Trump is the X factor. Trump changes everything. He's completely thrown the entire system into chaos, and it's nearly impossible to guess what may happen, other than using 2016 as some measure. We have the Republicans with 40 open seats, 40 seats where they had retiring Republicans. It makes it much tougher. That's 40 brand new people you have to defend. They're not seats that they're seats you're holding had a previous Republican, but the person retired or left the Congress for various reasons. It makes it a little tougher. So we also have the factor that we see the incredible amount of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars pouring into a lot of these House races and Senate races, and so much of this money is coming from out of state. We have the big billionaire donors like Soros and Steyer and Buffett and the Hollywood crowd pouring in tons of money. They're out raising Republicans. Republicans are being outspent in the average House race by 2 to 1, in some cases 3 to 1 or more, and they're still pretty much holding their own. But I'm sticking with my original prediction that we hold the House with 222 seats, and I know that 538 and all these other so-called expert polling places are still saying that 80 some odd % chance. I've heard 83, 85, 87 that Democrats take back the House, and I just don't see it. And it's not because of polls. It's not because of numbers, really. It's because of common sense. I can look and see what's happening. Obama couldn't get, 2,000 people to come and see him speak? Biden had 200. Trump gets 100,000 plus. The economy's good. He's doing a great job on foreign policy. He's standing up for the American worker. He's done a fantastic job renegotiating trade deals. He's defending our borders. It's hard to imagine that anyone who voted for Trump is not going to go out and vote for him again enthusiastically, because that's certainly going to happen. He's lived up to every promise he's made that he could do. The only reason he hasn't met all of his promises is because he's been hampered by the Congress, which is certainly hurting them. Had the Congress actually gotten rid of Obamacare completely by the roots and replaced it, which they said they would do for all them years, and they spit the bit when the time came. If they actually would have got the border wall funding, instead of trying to shove it in there at the last minute, like Kevin McCarthy's trying to. Where was Kevin McCarthy 6 months ago, 1 year ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago? Where was he? Hiding behind Paul Ryan, hiding up Paul Ryan's skirt. That's where he was. Now, because he wants to be speaker, he realizes he has to change his game plan. Don't buy it. McCarthy cannot be trusted. Jim Jordan for speaker. Make sure you call your congressman and let them know you want them to vote for Jim Jordan for speaker. So, again, I'm sticking with my prediction. Here's another thing. They keep saying, well, the Democrats only need to take 23 seats. Well, what happened in the 10 special elections that we've just experienced in the past 6-8 months? Republicans won 8 of 10 of the special elections, where there was tons of money poured in, including the race down there in Georgia with Mr. Osnot, or whatever his name is. Osgood. Oz whatever. That didn't work out, did it? And here's another thing. By saying that the Democrats only have to pick up 23 seats, you're assuming that they hold every other Democrat seat. That's not going to happen. So when you say 23, what they're talking about is 23 net. They need 23 net, which means they have to hold all the Democrat seats they have now in all those congressional districts and gain 23. And I just don't think it's going to happen. Are they going to pick up 23 seats? Probably. But is it going to be a net gain of 23? No, because they're going to lose some seats. If they need to pick up 23, but they lose 10, well, now they need to pick up 33 to take back the House. So we're talking about net. 23 net is what they need. They're going to lose some seats that they're defending, or seats that they hold now. They're going to lose some of those. They're not going to hold every seat that they have. They're going to lose some of those. So it's not 23 seats. It's 23 net. So I'm sticking firm with my prediction. It's going out on a limb, I know. But I did this in 2016 and I was right. I'm going to stay with my conscience and my common sense, which tells me that we are going to, when the smoke clears the day after the election, it will probably be Wednesday before we're going to have the results, because all those races out in California and the West Coast, the polls don't close till 11 our time. Like in Ohio, the polls in California don't close till our time, 11:30 our time or something. 9:30, 10:30, something. It's pretty late at night when the polls close, and you got a lot of races in California, which could determine which way the House goes. California could determine which way the House goes. That's why holding on to those seats out in California are so important, and even flipping a few seats would be nice. So we probably won't really know till Wednesday unless it's like a landslide. If it's a landslide, or if the Democrats do really, really well in places like Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, if the Democrats do really well there, then we'll know early on in the evening that it is, in fact, the Democrats are going to take the House. But if the Republicans are holding on and looking good after the East Coast, the Midwest, out to about, where you get into that Western time zone where it's like 3 hours behind us, if we're sitting pretty then, I'm going to feel pretty good about our chances. And it'll really come down to waiting for the last 3 hours for those polls to close and seeing how it shakes out. California is going to be critical. And so if you live out in California in a Republican district or in a Democrat district, you got to get out and vote, man. It's absolutely critical out in the Western time zone. Those races could decide the House. But yeah, I'm sticking with my prediction. It's just in my gut of what I'm feeling. And, we'll see. But I'm still saying that the day after, when the smoke clears and then the votes are counted, the Republicans will have 57 Senate seats, 222 House seats. That's my prediction. I'm sticking with it. Keith Ellison is dropping like a rock in Minnesota in that Attorney General race. He has fallen 12 points in 2 weeks, down 7 just in the past several days to Doug Wardlow. And something else that you don't hear a lot of people talking about is the down ballots. Remember, a lot of times people will vote, say, governor, and they'll vote, if they like the governor, Republican or Democrat, then they'll vote down the line for that party. So you can have a lot of down ballot races influenced by governor races or higher echelon races, Senate races, House races, well, not so much House, but typically Senate races, governor races. You can get those down ballot effects kicking in as well, and it's showing in Minnesota that this could be exactly what is happening and why Keith Ellison is being dragged down. If we see something like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, if we see these states really go redder than they did in 2016, then you can pretty much guarantee that regardless of what happens on the West Coast, the Republicans will probably have a good chance of holding on to the House. We'll have to watch these very, very closely. CNN finished last week again behind Nickelodeon, last place. They literally only had an average of 609,000 daily viewers every day during the week. That's what their average was. 609,000 every day is what their average daily viewing was, 609,000, and it was the whole week pretty much. That was their average. That's incredible for a network like CNN to only be able to get 609,000 average viewers a day. That's just incredible, considering the massive, media organization that they are. Again, we have Nate Silver predicting 86% that the Democrats win the House. But then again, he said 72% chance that the right Reverend Clinton would be president at the same time last year, or 2 years ago in 2016. Nate Silver, I understand he's good at crunching numbers in sports. But again, politics, a whole different thing. House races, nearly impossible to use just numbers. There's too many other factors that go into House races. It's nearly impossible. You almost have to have experts analyze every race, seat by seat by seat, all across the country. 435 of them. Very, very difficult to do. It's just very, very hard to do. James O'Keefe has dropped a hint that his next target is Heidi Heitkamp. And the word is, however, that she's already suspended her campaign. She hasn't officially announced that she's suspended her campaign, but the last time I checked, she was down by 12, 13, and now she's got this problem where she ran this ad where she showed people in this ad that she ran on TV as being sexual and named them the real names. She didn't use fake names; she used real names, real people as being victims of sexual assault. As it turns out, some of these people, these women, were not even victims of sexual assault at all. Others that were not very happy that they were outed. No one asked their permission. It appears that there is a lawsuit, several lawsuits that are now in the works as a result. And it appears that Heidi Heitkamp realizes that she's in some serious legal jeopardy. It's probably going to cost her big time in her bank account. She needs them campaign funds instead of running ads. She's going to be paying off legal debts. But it appears that that was pretty much the final straw for Heidi Heitkamp. Why she's not officially suspended her campaign. It's pretty obvious. She backed out of a debate. She's pulling ads. Her campaign's kind of gone silent. They're kind of closing the doors. I think it's over for Heidi Heitkamp, and James O'Keefe, Project Veritas, is likely going to be dropping a video on her in the next couple of days. Of course, we have Twitter shadow banning the gay guy that has accused Cory Booker of sexual harassment. Why should that not surprise us? This Georgia Democrat for governor, Stacey Abrams, in addition to the fact they just found an old video clip of her when she was a young woman, burning the Georgia state flag, which she's now admitted to because she's quite honestly caught on camera. But now she's talking about an entire ban on a category of weapons, which would all essentially be semi-automatics. So, if you live in Georgia, and the only firearm that you, and you care about firearms, you need to make sure you get out and vote for anything. Vote for a peanut. Vote for anything besides Stacey Abrams for governor. She's dangerous. And if you care about the Second Amendment, she is looking at a bill for the state of Georgia that would essentially eliminate semi-automatic weapons, which is just about everything, right? So, if you want to be left with nothing more than a musket in Georgia, you better get out and vote against Stacey Abrams. She's dangerous and quite stupid on the side. Very dangerous, a little stupid on the side. Very dangerous and a little stupid on the side. I won't make any references to Harambe. I would never do that, and so I'm not going to do it. Never done it before. Will never do it at this point, so I will not make any references to Harambe. Wolf Blitzer with Gregory Meeks. Gregory Meeks, of course, the delusional Democrat from New York, says that Trump saying he was a nationalist sounds a lot like Hitler, and he likes to hang out with people like Putin, Kim Jong-un, and, of course, the Saudi Arabia, the leaders of Saudi Arabia. Oh, boy. This guy should be just slapped. Of course, Wolf Blitzer is too stupid to correct this moron. Mr. Meeks, you commie-crat. In case you didn't know, Adolf Hitler was a National Socialist. A National Socialist who was loved and adored by liberals like you. 3 times Time magazine named him Man of the Year. He was a cosmopolitan guy. He appealed to all the left-wing liberals back in the 30s. Mr. Meeks, your friends, probably your daddy. A National Socialist. That's what Nazi stood for, Mr. Meeks. National Socialist Party. If Hitler were alive today, prior to his invasion of Poland, if he were alive today, if it was the early 1930s, you'd be a big fan, Mr. Meeks. A big fan. Putin. Trump doesn't hang out with Putin. He didn't turn over 25% of America's uranium. The Right Reverend Clinton did, along with the Obama administration. 7 cabinet officials, including the Right Reverend Clinton, had to sign off on that deal, Mr. Meeks. Trump has made more progress dealing with Kim Jong-un and North Korea in general than any American president since the Korean War, Mr. Meeks. And he's likely, before his first term is up, going to denuclearize that peninsula, have an actual end to that war, and possibly set North Korea on a course for a great improvement for that country and the people who live there. and eliminate that threat for a very, very long time. Certainly, I would assume through the life span of Kim Jong-un, and probably beyond. Trump's going to probably solve that problem in his first term. Mr. Meeks. Saudi Arabia, Mr. Meeks. Trump doesn't have any damn business dealings in Saudi Arabia. Quit pushing that garbage. And Wolf, you know it. You know it, Wolf. You just let it slide. I'd never let him get away with that. I would have called Mr. Meeks on every one of his damn points. Let me remind you, Mr. Meeks. 25% of the money taken in by the rotten Reverend Clinton in 2016 for her miserable campaign came from Saudi money. Saudi money. 25% of the rotten Reverend Clinton's funds came from Saudi Arabia, Mr. Meeks. Trump financed his own campaign. He's come out and openly stated that what happened in Saudi Arabia, whatever happened, was bullshit. He said it's the worst cover-up attempt of anything he's ever seen, and that they are going to punish the individuals who may have been involved. As I said, we'll never get the truth of what happened there. They'll throw some individuals under the bus and we'll move on. Some dirty play going on there. But this guy, whoever he was, whatever he was into, we know what his number one cause was. Pro-Palestine. Anti-Israel. He made a lot of enemies with a lot of the wrong people. Does he deserve to be, murdered and kidnapped and chopped up, or, dipped in acid and, incinerated or whatever? No, of course not. But it's kind of a tough world, especially when you get involved in that kind of stuff. It's a rough and tumble place. And when you start messing around with the deep state, you get in certain people's way. I mean, it's not new. This is not like just started going on. This has been going on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Since there have been governments. Governments, rogue individuals find themselves in governments. Sometimes the governments themselves are just totally corrupt and totally rogue. And governments get rid of people who cause problems for them. Sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's political, sometimes it's strategic, sometimes it's, a lot of reasons. Sometimes they just decide, you gotta go. It's life. It happens. Right or wrong, good or bad, it happens. Governments have killed more people than anybody on the planet. They're pretty good at it. When you get on the wrong side, you get on the bad side of some government bureaucrats, some crooked cronies or whatever, just ask Donald Trump. Ask Papadopoulos. Ask Michael Flynn. Ask John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King. Go down the list. It's a long list of people who got on the wrong side of the deep state. Mr. Meeks. Rick Scott is leading Bill Nelson by just 0.3%. Whew, that's a close race. I believe when the smoke clears that that Florida will do the right thing. It's a very, very split state. I mean, it's really a tough state. But hopefully Republicans will all be successful in Florida. But it's a tough dig down there, I know. Bug-eyed fool Adam Schiff is now suggesting that he will investigate Trump's Saudi ties. Of course, they never had any interest in investigating Bush's Saudi ties, Clinton's Saudi ties, or the fact that the Saudi Arabian government pays private organizations to lobby media organizations, others, not to run bad or negative information about the kingdom. The Department of Homeland Security has confirmed that there are gang members and criminals in the Salsa Caravan. Trudeau has imposed carbon taxes in Canada to people who won't impose them on themselves. And Gillum will not win Florida. Gillum is anti-gun. He's anti-cop. He's anti-Israel. He's pro-sanctuary city. He's endorsed by Bernie and by the rotten Reverend Clinton, which is the kiss of death. He wants to investigate Trump, who won Florida. That's all you need to know. Gillum will not win. Y'all have a good night. See you tomorrow. Bye.